like Ventura TV Appliance on Facebook, it's nice. But when you love the Samsung big screen we deliver, it's even better. Our website is cool, and it's a good place to start. But you really should touch the merchandise before you buy. Time for that upgrade to an HD 3D web-enabled Samsung TV. Get the best selection, price, and service in town without waiting. Come in to Ventura TV Appliance and touch the merchandise today.
Hi, I'm John Mallows. Welcome to this live edition at Connect with Me on the showroom floor at Ventura TV on this day. We'll be here from 10 to 11, the full hour, of course, 436-MeTV option 11. Do call in. Please do turn down the sound. I keep saying that like a broken record. Sorry about that, but we want to get you on the air as much as possible today. A very hot topic. We're talking about the drought, the lack of water, and Huntington Lake. Back with our program in just a moment. Glad to be back here on a Wednesday morning, of course, here on the showroom floor at Ventura TV. You're watching us on Comcast Channel 187 and 43.6. And before I get into the main topic today, which is Huntington Lake and the drought and all that, I want to talk about a couple of things, and that is the petition drives. Hey, Doug Vagum, our friend here on Connect with Me, was able to get the necessary petitions, the number of petitions signed, signatures that is. 5,544 were verified yesterday. Big news on the front page of the Fresno Bee today, of course. However, the needed signatures were 4,829, so he got well above the limit. Now, keep in mind that next Thursday, on July 17th, the City Council is going to vote on this in the morning sometime, and so we'll get the results. Whether or not the City Council and the Mayor and City Hall will fight this to try to keep it off the ballot remains to be seen, but Mark Standrift is going to be here next Thursday. He's the city spokesman. Doug Vagum will be here the next day. By the way, Standrift on Bill Manders yesterday on Power Talk said the City Council and the Mayor will not fight this. They'll just let it go on the ballot and let the chips fall where they may, so to speak. I want to talk about the World Cup just for a couple of minutes, and that score yesterday was shocking to say the least. Brazil losing to Germany. They were whipped 7-1 on their home turf. I would say that the entire country of Brazil is in mourning today. The stock market there is down, the worst defeat for Brazil in decades in the World Cup. It is huge, gigantic. I mean, we can't even imagine how big this is in Brazil. All tears yesterday, and they weren't crocodile tears, I'll tell you that right now. In the meantime, also the Giants and the A's continue their series tonight at AT&T Park. So far, the A's have, they've manhandled the Giants the last two games at the Oakland Coliseum. They switch over to AT&T for the next 2 days. Now to our main topic of the day here on Connect with Me, and I know that you're going to want to call in on this one. This has to do with the California drought, and this thing is affecting a lot more than just the California farmers. It is affecting many businesses, including up in the high country like the resort areas. Let's go to the videotape and I'll show you exactly what I am talking about when it comes to the drought in Huntington Lake. Huntington Lake is one of those areas being affected big time. It's located roughly 70 miles east of Fresno, above Shaver Lake in the heart of the Sierra National Forest, 7,400 feet above sea level. Hey, there's the map right there. You can kind of see the relation between Fresno and where the lake is located. Last year, the Aspen fire kept the crowds away. This year, the lack of rain is doing it. The water level fell to about 30% below capacity. Thus, for the first time in 60 years, the High Sierra Regatta was canceled. Of course, local businesses took a major hit. They rely on the regattas and the marina to use that as a source of revenue. And so the folks up there have had they've had to get creative this year with the drought in effect by coming up with other events that would attract crowds. So they want crowds to go up there even though there is a lack of water, such as the sandcastle contest, 30-foot kite exhibitions, fishing derbies, and there's much more that we can talk about. Huntington Lake has been around for 100 years, 1914, serving as a recreational area. And back in 2001, the Billy Creek Museum was open to the public. We'll explain all of that throughout the entire show. Now, here in the studio live is Maureen Barile, who is a volunteer and served as the secretary of the board for 20 years. She is here to talk about all the great events that are taking place this summer, hoping to get you up there so you can spend a little bit of money. Hey, lack of water, but still a lot of events going on up at Huntington Lake, just above Shaver Lake, about 70 miles east outside Fresno. You want to call in, be a part of the program? Hey, call in at 436-MeTV, option 11, turn down the sound, and please, please, feel free to ask any question you'd like about the drought and Huntington Lake. Back in a moment.
When you're looking for KitchenAid innovation and quality, who has the answers, the selection, the price? Ventura TV Appliance. With billions in nationwide appliance buying power, more than Home Depot and Best Buy combined, will help you save. Our low prices on Energy Star qualified KitchenAid appliances save you energy and money and pay no interest on select models when paid in full within 12 months. Ventura TV Appliance, serving you since 1951.
And we're back here with our program here on Connect with Me, talking about the drought, the California drought affecting resorts up in the high country, Huntington Lake specifically. Maureen Barile is here. And hi, Maureen. Good to see you this morning.
Hi, John.
How are you?
I'm fine, and we're very happy that you invited us here to kind of market and talk about Huntington Lake.
Yeah, the drought's had a big effect. Let's talk about you, though, first. You've been a volunteer for 20 years?
Actually, probably over 20 years, since about 1980. Myself and my family were big volunteers.
That's what I've been reading here, some of the stuff that you sent me, and also you serve on the board. Is that
Yes,
correct?
Yes, I'm the secretary of the Huntington Lake Association and also the Huntington Lake Big Creek Historical Conservancy.
Okay, some of the shocking video that we saw there was... well, it was pretty alarming. I guess people haven't seen Huntington Lake that dry in a long time, if ever, right?
That's right. No one has seen it that dry ever. This is the first time in the summer months, during the summer recreation period, that the lake has been that low.
Yeah. Hey, let's roll one of the pieces of videotape that we have. It's called Boat Launch, and you can talk a little bit about the drought and how this has affected the people up there in terms of their businesses. Look at this video up here. Look at the monitor, Maureen. Go ahead and look up there and see what you're looking at. See that? Explain what we're looking at there. Go ahead.
Well, what we're looking at people who normally would be launching the boats to either go, well, you aren't going to see sailboats because sailboats can't get to the water. These are mainly fishermen and people with kayaks and small fishing boats. Some fishermen are actually dragging their boats to the water so they can go in and do their fishing.
That's a pretty shocking scene. How deep would you say the water is right there?
I would say the water, I don't know how deep it is, but I would say it is probably, from the shoreline, it's probably 100 feet off of the shoreline.
Yeah, so can you successfully launch your boat off the beach there at all, or no?
No, you cannot.
You cannot launch your boat off there.
Those are not boat launching areas. You have to hand carry your boat and put it in the water.
Yeah, but you can still enjoy boating.
You can enjoy boating if it's the type of boating. Sailboating is out because they most of the boats have keels, and so you can't get a boat with a keel down there. You cannot get those large trailers down there. The people who are bringing their boats down are mainly fishermen and people with kayaks.
Yeah, I got to wonder about the fish, if there's, enough to go around.
Actually,
because of the low water level.
It's interesting you should ask that, because I asked the same question, and I was told actually the fishing is great because you got a smaller amount of water, and the fish are more condensed in a condensed area.
I see. So we don't want to give people the misconception that you can't boat on Huntington Lake. It's just that it's 30% capacity. The water level is low. But what other kind of boats besides sailboats that are just not allowed on the lake right now?
Well, if you could get your boat down there, you would be allowed to sail, but it's the fact of getting to the water and getting your boat launched into the water. Because sailboats, some of the larger keel boats, They need a long area. They need a solid ramp. They can't just be going in off of the dirt.
Yeah, so what you're saying is, okay, if you have a sailboat, if you can get it in the water, fine, but more than likely, you're not going to be able to launch that boat.
That's right. And then the second thing is you're probably not going to enjoy yourself because you're used to sailing an entire lake that's 7 miles long.
Yeah,
Okay.
and right now it is...
It's down to only 30% of capacity, so you
Right.
saw your actually would be sailing in like a little pond in the middle of the lake.
Right, and you probably have a lot of island interruptions.
Well, actually, and also rocks.
Rocks, yes.
And you would have perhaps trees. When the dam was first constructed in 1911, and between 1911 and 1913, the water started filling up faster than it was estimated it would. So a lot of trees are on the bottom. When they came through with hand saws and little rowboats in like 1913, and they sawed off trees. So there are a lot of trees that are probably maybe about 2 feet to 4 feet tall at the bottom of the lake.
Yeah,
Tree stumps.
You can still enjoy swimming and all
yeah.
the other outdoor water type activities. What about, I guess water skiing is out, I would assume?
You know, Huntington Lake is not really a big water skiing lake.
Okay.
Because of the altitude, people have problems with their carburetors. And
I
because
see.
of the winds that come up each day at between 10 in the morning and 4 in the afternoon, you have heavy winds, and that's why people like to sail there.
See, what we're looking at on the video there, normally that's covered with water, is it not?
Yes, exactly.
I mean, look how low that is. I mean, all that's like almost river bottom, and we're looking at it. We're looking at the dry rock bed there.
You're looking at the bottom of the, there's still a ways to go before you get to the bottom of the dam, but yeah, you're looking at the face of the dam.
Yeah, I mean, normally that's covered with water.
That's right, all the way up to can you see at the top? You can see the top of the dam, and then you see the little dam tender's house.
Yeah.
Normally that is all underwater.
Yeah.
So these are incredible photos.
So normally you've got what, 7 miles, you said, of lake?
Yeah.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
And so now you can see you still got the lake bottom, but all the water has just been reduced down right to the center of the lake, and the water's been reduced to the center of the lake and also to where the creeks come in. Because there are several creeks that come into Huntington Lake.
Okay. All right. Well, that's very interesting and very devastating to all the businesses up there. There's no question about that. We're going to get into all of the financial end of this, the drought, the California drought affecting not only Shaver Lake, but all of California and Huntington Lake as well. And we'll talk to Maureen Barile about that and much more. By the way, don't forget the phone number. How can you? It's on the screen all the time, right? 436 MeTV, option 11. Remember, my friends, do turn down the sound if you decide to call in. We're back with our program on the drought in just a moment.
Frigidaire. We introduced the first home freezer, the first pulsator agitator washer, and now we introduce the Frigidaire Orbit Clean dishwasher, designed with a unique wash arm that gives you 4 times more water coverage for a consistently better clean. Frigidaire, over 90 years of legendary innovation.
See the full line of Frigidaire appliances at Ventura TV Electronics and Appliances.
Back here on the show talking with Maureen Barile, and she is with the Huntington Lake Association. She serves on the board, has been a volunteer there for many, many years, trying to drum up business and keep that place afloat. You know, Huntington Lake, 100 years old, 1914 is when it became a resort, and in all that time, 100 years, have you ever seen this type of a situation? Of course, you haven't been around 100 years,
Right.
but in the time that you've been around, have you ever seen it this bad?
No, the only time it's ever been lower than this was in the springtime in the 90s when they were doing face work on the dam, on dam number 1. But that was because the water was drawn down in order for the crews to go in and put a new face on dam number 1. So, but as far as because of waters and being done because of Mother Nature, it's never been this way ever.
All right, caller, are you there? Okay, caller left. That's okay. What about pricing? Have you lowered the price of going into the water or launching a boat?
There is no price. This is a forest service. You're in the forest, and you do have to pay to park your car if you're going to leave your car in the boat launching area. But to actually launch a boat, there's no charge for.
Okay, I want to take a look at some more video here. The dry beach The beaches are so dry on Huntington Lake that it's really sad to look at. I mean, when you look at that video right there, it's pretty amazing that anyone is even going up there at this point. I think it's kind of shocking that anybody would want to go to Huntington Lake. I don't want to discourage people from going up there, but we have a phone call coming in. Good morning, caller. What's your question?
My question is, what those pictures that we're looking at right now, the sound turned down, you're probably describing it, but that's normally all that sand, rocks, and those stumps, that's all underwater the rest of the time. I'm assuming that the drought conditions have lowered the lake so low that what we're seeing is an expanded beach area. I've never seen anything like that. Here's my question. My question is, I heard, of course, that there's an aircraft at the bottom. When the water is this low, is it possible to see that War-era aircraft? And also, I was reading some time ago that there's a locomotive at the bottom of the lake. Are you able to see anything like that, any of these artifacts?
Caller, you know what I heard? You know what rumor I heard? I heard the Loch Ness Monster is also down there.
He's probably getting a sunburn then, right?
He's probably getting a sunburn. Of course, that's just a joke. There's no Loch Ness Monster there, but there is a plane down there. Talk about that.
Yes, I'm with the Huntington Lake Big Creek Historical Conservancy also, and I'm a docent at the museum. The plane is still quite a distance from being even visible.
Okay, so it's a plane that went down.
It's a B-24 bomber, which...
what year did it go down?
It crashed on December 6, 1943.
Wow.
And it was one of 9 planes that were out from Hammond Field that were looking for a plane that went missing on December 5th, 1943. And so those planes who were doing that hunting and searching mission, one of them crashed into Huntington Lake. But
it's still there?
It's still there, yes.
All right, do you have scavengers there looking for parts?
Yes, that was a problem. Now, it can't happen anymore because in 1985, President George W. Bush signed an act that prevents anybody from salvaging any parts from any plane or from any boat that belongs to the American government anywhere in the world.
Yeah.
But that was a problem, and that's why it's not a complete plane, because in the 80s, before there were those protections, a salvage hunter did come in, and he managed to take out a wing and some other parts.
Oh.
The plane is now protected, and so it will stay exactly where it's at, because we at Huntington Lake feel it as a burial ground.
Will it stay there forever, or
Yes.
will the government come in and maybe try to get the plane out?
I don't think the government will really come and try to get it out, because the only reason they could take it out is if they had an educational purpose for it, or if they had a historical purpose. And with the Historical Conservancy, we have got so much information with regard to the B-24 bomber, and we actually have a display at our museum which is dedicated solely to the B-24 bomber.
Oh, very interesting. So no Loch Ness Monster?
No Loch Ness Monster, no.
What else is down on that lake that you know of?
Well, the gentleman talked about the Shay. There has been a lot of rumors that there is a Shay, and that at one point in time that someone had come through with some type of infrared and thought they had found the Shay, but so far nobody has seen it. But there's a lot of stuff down there that... just debris.
All right. Good morning, caller. What's your question?
Well, I don't have a question, but I did want to kind of promote Huntington Lake. We were just up there yesterday, and we had a marvelous time. We went to Rancheria Falls. We hiked to Rancheria Falls, which the turnoff is just a mile above China Peak, and then we went on to Huntington Lake, and we were down on the beach, and the kids swam in the water, and then we went to the Lakeshore Resort for a wonderful ice cream. So in spite of the drought, we had a wonderful time and a wonderful breeze blowing off the lake.
Wow. So you had a nice time up there. And the elevation is what up there, roughly speaking?
It's about 7,300 feet elevation. And when you're at Tamarack Ridge, it's 7,500, and you drop down a little bit into Huntington.
In the monologue, I said 74, but who's to quiver about 100 or so feet? Who
Exactly.
cares?
It depends where you're standing, actually.
Yeah, it really does. Yeah.
And you know what's interesting, because the gentleman caller before talked about people haven't seen this, and I think a lot of folks are going to be drawn to Huntington Lake because this is a once-in-a-lifetime event. with the water so low and being able to see the terrain like never before.
Thank you, caller. I appreciate it very much. I want to take a look at some more video, put some more video up on the screen. The dry pier. You know, this is all stuff that, you know, we can look at over and over again, and I'm sure we sound redundant at this point talking about how dry the conditions are up there, but look at that. Almost looks like, you know, the middle of the Mojave there with just a little stream going through. It's really kind of devastating, is it not?
Well, you know, it's interesting. In the wintertime, you will see the lake looking like this, but very few people come up in the wintertime. I happen to be a winter user.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, let's keep that video up there as we take a call. Good morning, caller. What's your question?
Yes, sir. I'd like to ask Miss Barile, what is a shay?
Okay.
What is the what?
What's the shay?
What is the shay in the bottom of Huntington?
The shay would be an engine that was used to pull a train.
Oh, okay. Alrighty.
Yeah.
I learn something new every day. Thank you.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
Sure do. How cold is that water right there that we're looking at?
The water at Huntington Lake is, in the summertime, the warmest it gets is 40 degrees. In fact, when you sail in a regatta up there, because those activities are all permitted by the U.S. Forest Service, all sailors are required to wear life jackets because the water is so cold. And if you're in the water longer than 5 minutes and you're in a regatta, they're required that you take a rescue.
Is that right?
Yeah.
So even in during the hottest part of the summer, like now, it's still pretty cold.
Yeah, because that water is coming directly off the snow.
All right. Well, the dry beds there at Huntington Lake, about 70 miles east of Fresno. We're going to come back, and I know we said we're going to talk about the businesses and what effects that drought has had up there on those businesses, and we will do that when we come back. 436-MeTV option 11. If you're planning on going up to Huntington Lake this weekend, you may want to call in, ask Maureen a question, because she knows. You know, I don't know anybody who knows more about Huntington than the very sweet lady we have here today, Maureen Barile. Back in just a moment.
When you like Ventura TV Appliance on Facebook, it's nice. But when you love the Samsung big screen we deliver, it's even better. Our website is cool, and it's a good place to start. But you really should touch the merchandise before you buy. Time for that upgrade to an HD 3D web-enabled Samsung TV. Get the best selection, price, and service in town without waiting. Come in to Ventura TV Appliance and touch the merchandise today.
Back here on the program and talking about Huntington Lake. So what about the businesses, and what kind of an effect has it had on those that really they rely on their income, you know, during the course of the summer months? You know, that source of revenue is very important to them.
Well, I think the interesting part is kind of like the positive part of it. They've all been impacted financially. I know one of the marinas up there, probably 50% of their income in the summer comes solely from their boat docks that they rent out. So what has happened is the businesses have all had to come together and become very, very creative. And so now you can be seeing activities at Huntington Lake this summer that you've never seen in the past and you may not see in the future.
I want to talk about that in a second. Now, what kind of businesses have been affected? Name some of the businesses.
Okay, you have
that
Rancheria Garage and Marina, and they have a garage where they sell gasoline. They do mechanical work on vehicles and on snowmobiles and on boats. They also have a marina. They have a very, very large marina, and they are probably, out of all of the businesses up there, they are impacted by the water being so far away from where their marina is, because they are at the east end of the lake, and they are the most easterly business. And then you come around to Lakeshore Resort, and Lakeshore has been impacted by the sailboat regattas. They have people use the regattas for dinner parties, for events, and all of those been canceled. And then when you come around to the west end of the lake, it's kind of interesting, is now that resort down there is only open. They're not open in the wintertime. They're just a summertime. And they've been impacted greatly. About 50% of their income has been impacted because of no access to the water and to the boat docks.
Yeah. Another piece of videotape, it's called Tree Stumps, and a lot of those around, sadly, on Huntington Lake. Now, as we take a look at something, now, there's a tree stump that normally is covered by water?
Yes, all those stumps are covered by water.
Every single one of them?
Yes,
Wow.
those stumps are never out of the water.
Yeah, how about the one on shore? Is that usually covered too?
That's not the shore, that's actually the lake bottom.
That's the lake bottom. That's the lake bottom. That's amazing.
Yeah.
So everything that we're looking at in this video here is usually covered by water.
It's usually covered by water, and at this time of year we would be coming up to the High Sierra Regatta, and there would be probably 150 sailboats on a weekend like this sailing right in that exact area.
How far left does that water go up in a normal year?
It goes right up to the shoreline, up to where the trees are, just about 3 feet below the trees.
Wow. So that's all lake bottom right there.
That is all lake bottom. Everything you're seeing here today is lake bottom, and just to put in perspective, look to see where the trees are, and then the waters will be about 3 feet below the trees.
Is that shocking or what?
It is very, very shocking, it's really scary. When we met with Southern California Edison, they're the utility company who has the Big Creek project, they said they just hope they didn't have to come to us next year telling us, they have a little bit of leeway this year, but next year, if it's the second year of a drought like this, it'd be really devastating.
We're looking at the trees in the top portion of the screen there. That water goes up near those trees?
It goes right up. That looks like the area down by the Billy Creek Museum, and the water below the museum, it comes up right up to the trees.
Yeah, we'll talk about the Billy Creek Museum in just a moment. What other kind of events now have you had to put on there at Huntington Lake because of the drought? So what kind of event? You've had to alter the schedule,
yes,
obviously.
And what Huntington Lake Association did, we're not a business person. What we are, we represent 416 recreational residences at Huntington Lake, the commercial businesses, and also the camps. That's what our membership is. So we could see that, just by knowing the conditions, we knew that the activities were going to be altered. And so
you become creative.
We became creative.
Okay, but what events? I mentioned a few of them in the monologue, like the Sandcastle contest and others. What other events have you had to come up with?
Oh, the fishing derby is that's a great one.
Okay.
We're having a fishing derby, and that's being sponsored by Rancheria Garage and Marina, which is at the east end of the lake. And that's actually started on June 27th. We'll go through to July 27th. Then on July 28th, it starts again, and it goes through August 28th. And it's a fishing derby where it's adults, it's $10, and children, it's $5. And they have 4 different types of fish. They have suckers, brown trout, kokanee, and rainbow, which as far as categories of fish. And that one is getting a lot of activity. People are really, because Huntington Lake is a big fishing lake, not just sailing, but it is a big fishing lake. And now they said, hey, we're going to do this, and that one is becoming very successful.
Yeah. A schedule of events, other events that you have up there that you want to mention?
Yes, in fact, we'll talk about this coming weekend. This weekend we are having at the Lakeshore Resort Hall activity which is actually going to benefit the Billy Creek Museum, and it is a rollicking 20s. We've got a barbershop quartet. I think if you want to call them a barbershop quartet, it's a group of ladies. One of them is from Huntington Lake. They've donated their time, and they're going to be singing barbershop quartet songs, things from the 20s and 30s. There's going to be...
That's this weekend?
That's this weekend.
This Saturday, right?
It's this Saturday. It's
July the 12th.
$15 for adults, children 12 and under, no cost. You'll get a big tub of popcorn. We're going to have lemonade. There will be some hors d'oeuvres. And then there's going to be a silent auction. And the silent auction is going to be we have some really great things to auction off.
What does it cost here to get in?
$15 for adults.
$15. Okay.
Yeah.
Children under the age of 12 get in for free.
That's correct.
Okay, and the Billy Creek Museum fundraiser, that benefits that. That's what this thing is all about. It benefits the Billy Creek Museum, which is what? What is the Billy Creek Museum? Explain that in detail, would you please?
Okay. You may have to stop me because I can go on and on about the Billy Creek Museum. The Billy Creek Museum was originally the Huntington Guard Station. It was constructed in 1929 by the U.S. Forest Service, and the first ranger was housed there in 1932, and he stayed there till 1952. Now, the Huntington Guard Station, the first guard was a fellow by the name of Orland Bartholomew, and a lot of people recognize his name. He was a very, very well-known mountaineer. And what Orland did was, in 1931, he by himself. He went on a solo ski trip from Mount Whitney down in the Sequoia all the way across the Sierras, and he ended up at Yosemite. It was about a 3-month trip, and he did that in the dead of winter. And so he's really, really well known for that trip. And then he came back and he got married and brought his young bride there, and they raised their children at Huntington Lake from 1932 to 1952. And what happened was, as time progressed and the Forest Service started contracting out some of their work, the Huntington Guard Station probably in the late 70s ceased to exist as a guard station. Okay. In fact, my husband, who is now deceased, he was the Huntington Guard in 1965.
Oh.
And so he had a love for that guard station. Anyway, a group of people from Huntington Lake, we didn't have the Historical Conservancy yet, we got together and we went to the Forest Service, about 5 of us, and said, we'd like to take the abandoned guard station and turn it into a museum. They thought it was a great idea. The Forest Service says, yeah, we think it's a great idea, but there's a problem. The forest plan says the guard station will be totally demolished and turned back to its original conditions of the forest. And we said, well, this is good for education. We want to.
Yeah.
We'd like to keep this for education. So we said, give us the first step, and then we'll take it from there. It was a 12-year process, and it was mainly about 4 of us: Chris O'Berty, a fellow by the name of Fred Ilkert, who has since passed away, my late husband Tom Barile, myself, a fellow by the name of Bill Forbes.
Okay.
We said, we are going to make this happen. So we found out what step 1 was, and 12 years later, we got our permit. And what we had to do is not only historical things, a lot of environmental actions had to take place. There had to be environmental assessments. There had to be an appeal of that original forest plan to take.
Yeah.
There was 10 words. Huntington Guard Station will be removed. We had to get those 10 words removed out of the plan. So we had to go through a whole process there. And then the interesting part is when we were just about to get to the permit, they discovered that under the main house there was asbestos. And so not only was that delayed the opening by another 2 years, every building of that same type and that vintage on Region 5, they said nobody can go into this facility, so we check everything for asbestos. Okay.
Yeah.
And then 2 years later, we got a grant. We had the asbestos abated. We got our permit. And I don't know how much time I got on it, but there is a reason why we're there. There's a historical designation by the state of California why that building was allowed to become a museum.
Right. So the museum has all kinds of artifacts.
It does. It does. We have a whole room which is very, very popular on the history of the B-24 bomber.
Yeah.
We have a lot of information on the Big Creek Hydro project.
Okay.
We have a lot of information on the Mono people, who were the original people who...
It's basically the history of Huntington Lake.
It's a history of Huntington Lake and eastern Fresno County.
All right. We got to take a break. We're talking with the one and only Maureen Barile, and she is here to talk about Huntington Lake. She's been a volunteer there for the better part of 20 years. You can call in. Plenty of time left. 436-MeTV option 11. Do call in. Do turn down the sound. Back in just a moment.
When you like Ventura TV Appliance on Facebook, it's nice. But when you love the Whirlpool appliances we deliver, it's even better. Our website is cool, and it's a good place to start. But you really should touch the merchandise before you buy. Touch the new Whirlpool Ice Collection. It offers a modern style made to create an inspiring kitchen experience. Save big on this Whirlpool Black Ice or White Ice kitchen. Come in to Ventura TV Appliance and touch the merchandise today.
And we're back here talking about Huntington Lake, and we're going to talk about some of the, some of the places that are affected here, the patches of trees. I want to roll that videotape because, I can't run this enough. I mean, showing the drought, showing the lake bottom, the lack of water. It is pretty stunning to see this, Maureen. And what are we looking at here? What area of the lake is this right here?
This is at the east end of the lake. This would be down below Rancheria Garage and Marina. And what you have to look at, what's so critical about this picture is it is so low because you think about Florence Lake and Edison Lake, which are feeder lakes into Huntington Lake, and then the water goes from Huntington down to Shaver, to Redinger, and so forth. So you have to, when you look at this, you have to assume what is the water like at Florence and Edison. Earlier this year, Florence was only at 7% of capacity. Until they had the big storms in April, Florence was at 7% of capacity, and I think Edison was only at about 3% of capacity.
And I just want to say, all that is lake bottom right there.
That is all lake
Should
bottom.
all be covered by water.
All of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's all lake bottom.
Yeah. So the businesses are suffering.
Yes,
What
they
are they? Are they like what? Maybe 40, 30% off on their source of revenue?
Well, I know from one marina, they're like at 50% off. I know Lakeshore Resort, which has a lot of dinners and activities related to boating, mainly sailing. They are now being creative, and they've sponsored a rock crawl with four-wheel drives, and then they've been trying to do weddings, encourage weddings. And Lakeshore Resort is in a different position because they also are a winter resort, and their winter activities were cut short.
We'll take a call here. Good morning. You're on the air. Go ahead, caller.
Thank you. I've been sailing up there for many long years, and you can imagine how despondent I felt when I heard that the regatta had been canceled, but it's a relief to see that things are still going on up there. I checked the website because I always try to catch the pancake breakfast fundraiser that the fire department sponsors. I checked the website, and thank goodness it's still going on. And I was up there last weekend for the pancake breakfast, and you couldn't tell that anything was wrong because they were full of people. There was a lot of commerce happening, a lot of happy faces, and
long as we're talking about the pancake breakfast, maybe we ought to roll the videotape and check it out. So you were up there last weekend, huh, caller?
Last weekend, and you can't see the lake from Lakeshore Resort. Of course, you have to go down the Marina Road and up to the water's edge. But from the forest, I guess you could call it, or from 168, you wouldn't know that the lake was depleted. And you sure couldn't tell that people were staying away because they had droves of people in the big hall at Lakeshore Resort. So it was a relief because I was afraid it was the whole year was going to be written off, but that's not the case at all.
What kind of pancakes last weekend?
The kind I like. It's buttermilk, and they also served sausage. They had ripened West Side cantaloupe. Orange juice was served. Some real good coffee. I could have drunk an entire pot of it. Lots of friends and sailors from the yacht club that were there. A lot of happy people. Fresno celebrities and notables were all there, and it's nice to see that, in fact, commerce and tourism is not dead in Lincoln Lake this year. It is, in fact, happening.
Okay.
And I encourage anybody that has time to go on up and have a look-see and have some fun.
Caller, thanks for the commentary. Do you have a question for Maureen?
Yeah, my question is about the Billy Creek Museum. I think it's a great effort both you and your late husband put forth to make that happen, and I think she should be commended. That's a commentary. But my question is, what are the plans for Billy Creek Museum this year? Am I going to be able to go in and see the bomber room and look at some of the artifacts and some of your new acquisitions? And if so, when does the museum open?
Okay. Thank you.
Unfortunately, this summer the museum will stay closed, and that
for a whole summer?
Yes, and that's not by choice. The museum is under permit to the U.S. Forest Service. Okay. And I don't know if you're aware, but they're going to be doing campground restorations on the Lower Billy Creek campground and also on Upper Billy. Well, Lower Billy Creek is supposed to start midsummer, around the 1st of August, the campground restoration. So the Forest Service, because of liability purposes, they've asked us not to open the museum because we share common roads with the Lower Billy Creek campgrounds, and they feel it's a liability issue to invite the public down there.
Yeah.
So the Billy Creek Museum will not be open this year.
All right. Caller, you're on the air. Go ahead.
Hi. When has the lake started to evaporate?
What was that question?
When did the lake start evaporating?
Yeah.
I don't know the degree of how fast water evaporates, but this has to do with there was no rainfall, no snow. The snowpack was so low, and Huntington Lake gets its water from Florence Lake, which is there's a 14-mile solid granite tunnel between Huntington Lake and Florence Lake,
and that's where the water trickles down.
That's where the water actually comes down a tunnel that is you can drive not a 4x4. You can drive a big truck in there.
Yeah. Go ahead, caller. You got another question?
No, that was my question.
All right. Well, thank you very much for calling. I appreciate it. And so, the combination of a lack of rain, lack of water, plus we all know water evaporates.
Exactly.
That doesn't help.
And another issue which people are concerned about this year is because of forest fires, because there was a forest fire last year.
Aspen fire.
The Aspen fire.
How did that affect businesses? It was almost like a continuation. One disaster after another.
It did.
Last year was the fire. This year, the drought. So it's been back-to-back years because people last year were afraid to go up there because of the Aspen fire.
And also they were afraid of the fire and also the smoke. The smoke kept a lot of people away. And so what happened was it kind of got compounded because last year activity was down a bit, because of the Aspen fire. And then there was no snow during the wintertime. And Huntington Lake Lakeshore Resort and Rancheria Garage, they are big in the wintertime.
Another call coming in. Good morning. You're on the air.
Hey, good morning. I just wanted to know if you have an internet connection so I can get you. I'm in Northern California.
You mean for this show, Connect with Me?
Yes. For Caterina Benitez.
Oh, yeah.
Is she on the air now?
No, she's not. She was yesterday, and we have...
she was yesterday. Okay, I just got an email from her. I am very sorry to interrupt what's going on now.
Do you have
but I would like to know how to be able to listen to your show on the internet if that's possible.
Not yet, but hey, caller, have you got a question for our guest today, Maureen Barile, talking about Huntington Lake and the drought and the devastation from an economic standpoint up there? Do you have a question for her?
No, I don't, because I can't hear it. I can't hear the show. I'm very sorry. Thank you.
Okay, well, thanks for calling in. We'll maybe someday we'll have a live stream, but not for now. So, hey, at least he's interested in the show.
That's right.
He called up, right? Hey, we got to take a break, Maureen.
Okay.
All right. We're talking with the one and only Maureen Barile. She has been a volunteer up there at Huntington Lake for the longest time, and she welcomes your phone calls at 436-MeTV option 11. Do turn down the sound when you call in.
Don't you ever hit me again!
Chief, I think we got a hit on our hands.
MeTV Fresno, now on Comcast Channel 187.
And we're back here on the show and Connect with Me. Another call coming in. Good morning. You're on the air.
Yes, I was wondering what prizes they were giving out for the fishing derby.
What they're doing is every week in the adult and also in the children, they are giving out $50 and to the person with the longest and the heaviest fish, and that's once a week. And then at the end of the first session, which it goes till July 27th, there's a major prize, but I don't know what it is. They're not really saying. It's just some kind of a prize. And then they're going to start up again on July 28th through August 28th, and it'll be $50 a week for an adult and $50 a week for a child.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, caller. I appreciate it.
You're very welcome.
Okay. We talk about the drought and the lack of water, and when you put those two together, you're going to have surfacing debris. And I want to roll a piece of videotape. A lot of stuff coming to the surface. This is some of the debris that you see here that is risen to the top here, and I imagine this is a major problem.
Well, a major problem with the debris is sometimes some people think is debris is actually historical artifacts.
It's an artifact.
It's an artifact. So we really discourage anyone from picking up any debris. Maybe a fishing line is not an artifact, or maybe an old broken bottle or something. But
But how would you know? I mean, if it's an artifact, you're going along, walking along the river bank, and you see something, and you pick it up. How do you know if it's an artifact?
Well, one of the things I would say is the deeper you're getting down into the lake bed, the higher the probability is that it could probably be an artifact. And also, if you're going along the areas which are still pretty high at the west end of the lake, where you can still see some of the old train trestles, I think you can be pretty well assured that items there are not going to be debris, they're going to be artifacts. Also, if you come across anything that you think is Native American, I don't care if it's an arrowhead or whatever it is, all of the Native American findings do not belong to anybody other than the federal government. You cannot pick up those items.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, you can't. We do not even have any Native American items in our museum unless we borrow them from a Native American museum.
Okay, caller, you're on the air. Go ahead.
Yeah, hi. I was listening and I didn't catch all of the conversation, so I thought I'd get a little clarification here. She was talking about a tunnel for Huntington that receives the water from a lake above it and how large the tunnel is. And I was just wondering, could she describe, is it possible for people to go into the tunnel? And what is the condition of the lake, if I understood that right, that feeds into Huntington?
The tunnel is the Ward Tunnel, and no, it is a working tunnel. That is how it's 14 miles long. It goes from the east end of Huntington Lake all up to Florence Lake. That was constructed between 1918 and 1921 as a means of transferring water from one location to the other. It comes to a power station. You cannot get down to the power station because these facilities are all protected. They're all fenced off. But the tunnel was, this was so interesting, in 1918, what they used to measure everything for this 14-mile tunnel was a pum blob. That's what they had. And
what?
A pum blob, you know, where you've got a string and you have...
Oh, yes.
Yeah, that is what they used. And they were only just a couple of inches off. But no, you cannot go in it. But we do have, at the museum, next year will be open again, we do have a video on the Ward Tunnel.
Okay, so is water still coming through that
Oh,
tunnel?
yes.
All the time, right?
Well, when they're generating, then you don't, you won't see, you'll see a lot of water coming out when they're generating. When they're not generating, it'll be sitting still. But yeah, it's used, and it's not for public access.
Yeah. Okay, once a year, the pancake breakfast takes place. I want to go back to some of the video of them cooking pancakes, eating pancakes, pancakes being served, whatever. We had 2 pieces of video left on pancakes. Let's just roll these back to back. You know, I love pancakes myself. I want to know how much money this thing raised, because this is a once-a-year fundraiser for the Billy Creek Museum or for Huntington Lake.
No, the pancake breakfast is actually different. That's a fundraiser for the Huntington Lake Volunteer Fire Department.
Okay.
And I'm glad you brought that up, because the Huntington Lake Volunteer Fire Department, they do a tremendous job. It is all volunteers. They run totally on donations and grants. They write grants. They're very, very innovative. And the Huntington Lake Volunteer Fire Department, they service with no charge to the public. They service all the area from Huntington Lake to Florence and Edison Lake in the high country, and then all the way down to towards Big Creek and to Tamarack Ridge. They have a huge area that it's totally volunteer funded and totally volunteer work. And the chief of the fire department is a fellow by the name of Brother Chris Donnelly. He's a brother, he's a school principal at a Catholic.
Is he your brother?
No, he's a Catholic brother.
Oh, okay, gotcha. All right.
And the brothers at Camp LaSalle are very, very instrumental in keeping this volunteer fire department really at the rate it is really a top-notch volunteer fire department.
All right, we got the next piece of video here of them actually cooking the pancakes, and you have people of all shapes and sizes and ages and everything else coming in, getting their pancakes. And how much money does this raise?
You know, I really don't know the dollar amount, but I can tell you how the community supports it is, for instance, the Huntington Lake Association, we provide all of the manpower for the pancake breakfast, and then the brothers and their team of volunteers who actually are firefighters, they're out talking to people. They're kind of marketing.
Roughly how much money though?
I don't even want to say. I don't know. I can tell you probably how many breakfasts. I think they normally serve about 900 breakfasts.
But do they rake in 5,000? Maybe?
Oh, I would assume they probably do. Yeah.
10,000?
I wish I could say, but I don't know because I'm not part of the volunteer fire department.
You're not the treasurer, in other words.
Right. The volunteer fire department is an entity of itself. That's all they focus on is fighting fires in Huntington Lake and rescues.
Yeah, I see the cook there taking a swig of water.
Now, I got to tell you, one of the
doing a good job with those pancakes.
One of the oldest volunteers there, and I believe that's him right there, is Lauren Martin, who's like 92 years old, and he's been cooking at that pancake breakfast for years.
Yeah.
But it is a huge fundraiser.
Yeah, so he knows how to cook them if he's been doing it that long.
And I believe all of the food, everything is donated, so it's pure profit. And then they have a great silent auction too, because this volunteer fire department, people are very, very cognizant of fires in the forest.
I know that elevation, 7,400 feet, of course, above sea level. It's always a worry.
It is a worry, yeah.
Yeah. Remember the Aspen fire last year?
Yeah.
Okay. We're going to continue our conversation here with Maureen Barile, I should say. She is from Huntington Lake. She's with the association there. Been a volunteer for 20 years, sits on the board. She lives in Clovis, though. We'll talk about that and some of the events coming up here on Connect With Me. Still time for a phone call or two. The lines are open. 436-MeTV, option 11. Call in. Turn down the sound. Back in a moment.
When you like Ventura TV Appliance on Facebook, it's nice. But when you love the Frigidaire Gallery appliances we deliver, it's even better. Our website is cool, and it's a good place to start, but you really should touch the merchandise before you buy. Time for that upgrade to an Energy Star qualified French door Frigidaire Gallery refrigerator. Quality appliances for the way you live. Get the best selection, price, and service in town without waiting. Come in to Ventura TV Appliance and touch the merchandise.
Back here on Connect With Me, and our final segment here talking about the silent auction. Talk a little bit about that.
At the silent auction that we're having on Saturday, July 12th, for the as part of our Rollicking 20s, we have some really great items, and some of the items are actually historical items. And one of the things which I think is going to be a hot item is a book called The Cattle King. And this book was printed in 1931. And it's about Miller. You've heard about the water wars. Yep. This book is a whole history of, I can't remember his name, but his last name was Miller, and there was Miller and Lux, and they put together the whole water system and how water rights are in California. Well, that is one of the items that we're going to be auctioning off, is that historical book. Yeah.
Dates back how far? How far does it date back, the book?
It was printed in 1931, but it's about that whole period of time from the late 1800s up into that point with the water wars in California and how and we're facing that right now about all these water systems and water rights. Yeah. And this is the whole history of it. And it was donated, that book was donated by the museum for our fundraiser.
Yeah. Sad state of affairs when you think about the situation at Huntington Lake, and it's that way in a lot of places in California. Very devastating. I mean, why do those businesses even stay, and how do they stay afloat? Why do they stay there?
Well,
why don't they pack up and leave?
We normally don't have, we've had droughts before in 1975 and 1976.
But not like this.
No, but those were drought years. But there were still regattas. The lake level never dropped. This is just something that's totally new to the area. And of course, you got more people in California. You got more people wanting water, and also another piece. I know this isn't an area it's going to go into, but if you think about the forest is actually really overgrown. And it is estimated by the U.S. Forest Service that if they were to be able to do thinning, that it would increase the amount of water on the forest by about 17%. Because all of that overgrowth uses water. That's why it's growing so fast. So there is a source of water that is being depleted by overgrowth.
Oh, okay. Just a few minutes left here, about 5 minutes left, so we want to go over the calendar of events coming up, and we'll pick it up where we left off the last time here. And maybe, Maureen, you can look up on the screen there, Huntington Lake, August the 2nd. Now, what do we got here? The dance?
We've got a dance, and that is being sponsored by Lakeshore Resort Hall. Charlie Hall was a historian. He was a school teacher for many years at Roosevelt High School, and he started collecting a lot of history of Huntington Lake, and people gave him a lot of photographs, and which he gave all of his stuff to the museum. He donated all of his historical history photography to the museum. So that's in honor of him.
August the 9th. What do you got? The sports festival coming up here?
That's at China Peak, and what I really want to talk about is
Well, as long as we got that on the screen, why don't you explain what it is?
It's something that I don't know exactly what it is because China Peak is putting that on, and I'm not really...
but it is taking place up there.
It is taking place
on August
at China
9th.
Peak, yes.
And does that benefit Huntington Lake, the area there?
Well, it does because China Peak is in the Huntington Basin.
Okay.
So, and China Peak, like the other businesses, also operates under a permit to the U.S. Forest Service. So they all operate under the same conditions. And China Peak, like the people at Huntington, are all trying to get the economy going.
All right. Next, we'll just go in order what they are on the screen here, Maureen. Okay. August the 10th, we've got the big kite event.
Yeah, and that is really going to be fun. They've never had one of these at Huntington before, and it'll probably be the last time because it takes a lot of beach area. There's a group who's coming in from Berkeley, California. They have these giant kites that are about 30 feet in length.
Okay.
And you can see them from one end of the lake to the other, and they do like programs. They do like they dance. They just do a program in the sky. And there's also going to be small kites for sale if kids want to fly kites. If you have a kite at home, bring your kite because the beach will be open for flying kites.
Yeah, bring your chair, bring your sunscreen. I noticed that up there.
And this is at the west end of the lake at Huntington Lake Resort. And Huntington Lake Resort is creative, and they've came up with that idea.
Okay, August the 17th, we've got a motorcycle rumble to the peak.
And that is something that happens every year that a motorcycle group, I'm not sure which group it is, puts together with China Peak. And it funds some type of charity. Again, I can't really address that well. And that is an ongoing event.
Right, but again, it benefits, Huntington Lake.
It does because people who go to the rumble to the peak, they also come over to Huntington Lake. They buy groceries. They buy food.
They spend money.
They spend money.
All right, August the 23rd and the 24th, we got the four-wheel drive rock crawl.
And this will probably never happen again either because the area they're going to be in is normally totally underwater. But I understand last week they had a good turnout last Saturday. And this is sponsored by Lakeshore Resort.
All right, and coming up here in a couple of months on the 20th of September, it's the Sandcastle competition. And what exactly is that?
This is very interesting, and we're very happy to have this event at Huntington. It's going to kind of
building sandcastles
and
see who builds the best one or the most interesting one?
But it's professionals doing it.
Oh, really?
It's sponsored by Huntington Lake Association and the American Institute of Architects.
These are not amateurs, huh?
No, these are people who are engineers and architects, and then they bring in students who are architectural and engineering students, and they have a competition on the beach.
Oh.
And so there'll probably be about 100 people down there building sandcastles, and these are all done, by professionals.
And Lord knows there's enough sand down there on the beach right now, of course, with the water level being at, what, 30%?
At 30%. We may actually be bringing in some sand because sometimes when they're doing the sand castles, they need a specific type of sand so that everything kind of
what kind of sand do they need?
I don't know the name of it, but it's maybe a finer sand that kind of stays together. And so we're looking at, as a donation from the Huntington Lake Association, of bringing in some sand.
Yeah, and so this competition takes place on the 20th of September.
Right.
How much money would you say that all of these events combined will generate for the lake, Huntington Lake?
I have no idea because I don't know what each business would be making. But what will happen is I'm hoping Huntington Lake Resort, that 50% that they rely on for boats and marinas, I'm hoping that would fill that gap of 50%.
Yeah.
Lakeshore Resort and Rancheria Garage, they've been very creative. Hopefully, I'm sure they're not going to be back to 50, the total 100%.
Okay. Great. Maureen Barile.
That's
I
right.
I call you Maureen Boyle. I don't know why.
That's okay.
Okay, you're a very sweet woman. Come back
thank
again
you.
and talk about Huntington Lake, and good luck out there.
Thank you.
All right, Maureen Barile of Huntington Lake. She's been a volunteer for 20 years. Glad to have you along on the program today. We're back tomorrow with a tape program for the next 5 days. We'll be on vacation back on the 17th of July with a live program with Mark Standrift of the City of Fresno, and the next day, Doug Vagan will be here to talk about water rates. Those are 2 live programs. Have a great one. We'll see you next time here on Connect with Me.